Well, hi. It's fun to be at a conference like this. I was at a conference a couple of years ago. It was the first time really that AI got brought up to me at a conference. And it was backstage, the founder of one of the social media apps that your children use on their phone today. He came up to me, he said, "Rushkoff, I've been really worried about you." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, you've been writing a lot of pieces about AI lately, and they've been kind of negative." And I was like, "Yeah, well." And he says, "Well, yeah, aren't you worried that when the AIs are in charge, they're going to see what you wrote and come after you?" And I was like, "No, I hadn't really thought about it like that." And he said, "Well, I've systematically excluded any mention of AI from any of my online posts so that there's no evidence of how I feel or my fears or anything." And I said, "Well, if AIs are going to be that smart, don't you think they'll be able to infer from your selective redaction of material how you feel about them?" And he just went, "Oh, fuck." Right? And I bring that up not just because it's another great example of the inability of tech bros to think about system-wide or secondary effects of their actions, but because I realized that the way that he, and I think most industry thinks about AI, is that he was afraid that AI was going to treat him the way he and his friends are treating us. Right? I'm a fan of technology, and, as we're supposed to say these days, and I'm concerned about the way we tend to resist the liberative capabilities of technology in favor of doubling down on exactly the way things are done. Right? What happens historically is that some new kind of technology, a new age happens, and it creates some wobble and possibility in the existing civilization. But what seems to happen time and time again is the existing powers react to the technology in such a way that looks like they're embracing the technology, but what they're actually doing is resisting the potential of the technology to enhance human flourishing. You can go back to the industrial age. The dawn of the industrial age was a wonderful time, especially in Europe. It was just after the Crusades. We got local marketplaces and trading and local currencies and windmills. We had all of this stuff. It was the greatest economic creation of wealth, raising wealth and income in the history of the planet. But the problem, of course, was that as people got wealthy, as the peasants became middle class, the aristocracy got relatively poorer. So what did they do? They used industrial age technology to do the opposite. They invented the chartered monopoly, which said nobody is allowed to be in business for themselves. They have to be an employee of His Majesty's Royal whatever. And they weren't allowed to use local currencies. They had to use central currencies and borrow it at interest. So then what was all the great new technology of the industrial age used for? Well, the assembly line. And we were all taught in school that the assembly line was here to help us make more goods in less time. That's not what the assembly line was actually for. The assembly line was there so that the owners of the new chartered monopolies didn't have to hire expensive, skilled laborers to do their work. If you owned His Majesty's Royal Shoe Factory, do you want to hire a skilled, expensive cobbler, shoemaker, to make your shoes? No. You want to go to the medieval equivalent of the Home Depot parking lot and find an undocumented alien, bring them in, train them in 5 minutes to put one nail in a shoe, and pass it on to the next person. So the assembly line, as a technology, was not enhancing the skills and competency of the human workers. It was de-skilling the workers in order to give the boss, the manager, more power over those people. Another great industrial age technology that I was taught about in middle school was the dumbwaiter. Do you have that? Do you know the dumbwaiter? Do you have that? It's a little elevator that it's hand cranked that would bring food from the kitchen up to the dining room. And we were taught, oh, this was because Thomas Jefferson loved his slaves and didn't want them to have to work so hard to carry it all the way up the stairs. But those slaves were running around through tunnels and staircases. They were working plenty hard. No, the purpose of the dumbwaiter was to spare Thomas Jefferson and his dinner guests the indignity and the shame of seeing the huffing and puffing slave going up the stairs. Now, through technology, the food could arrive automatically, like a Star Trek replicator. So the purpose was not to enhance labor and human activity, but to push labor further down the skill set. Flash forward to the digital age. When the digital age happened, I thought, great, this is going to be a possibility for human connection. We're going to unleash the potential of the unbridled collective human imagination. But what did we do with it? We turned it into a Skinner box of social control. Instead of giving people technology to realize their weird psychedelic dreams, we used technology on people to make them more predictable. We used it for the opposite. And now with AI, we talk about, how we have this new technology to save labor. Does it really save labor? Or does it send how many thousands of kids go into the mines to get their rare earth metals? How many people are doing the cobalt mining? And how much water is coming out? I mean, what are we really doing? How many people are tagging the data? The data doesn't tag itself. There's thousands of people who sit and tag the data manually for an LLM. So yes, we're getting rid of some middle management, but we're creating lots of jobs that I don't think most of us would want. So as I see AI, the potential is so much bigger than even the biggest thing they're talking about. And it's because, like that first tech bro, people are thinking about LLMs and AI as if we're building a thinking alien thing, right, that we should be afraid of or worship or something. But really all AI is, all LLMs are, is the first native app of the internet. If you read Marshall McLuhan, he said that when you get a new medium, the first thing the new medium does is turns the last medium into its content. So that's what the internet did. It took the newspaper, it took radio, and eventually it took television. Most internet traffic is still, Netflix and Amazon. So we watch television with the internet. What LLMs do is turn the entirety of the internet into its content set, into its stuff. So for the first time, we have the ability to do what dear Vice President Al Gore promised that the internet would do, is let people over here who have one piece of information and over there's another piece of information. Finally, it can be connected in a way that makes sense. But the way to do that, and this is what I'm hoping we can talk about, the way to do that effectively is not to have an industrial age understanding of AI, which is that I'm going to use AI to answer my question. No, that's not the thing. What AI is here to do is to help you iterate your questions. It's not to get to the answer. It's not to find the product. That's industrial age thinking, right? We're going to make products, get to the product. No, a genuinely AI engendered workplace or thought space, right, is about process. These are iterative technologies. And when people get engaged with an iterative technology with an industrial age mindset, we see this crazy positive feedback loop that happens, right? Where they ask the thing, write a business plan for this idea. Here's your business plan. Great idea, Douglas. Right? That's a positive feedback loop. And then I've seen people, they email the business, they cut and paste the business plan to their employees. They don't even read it themselves. Right? Because it must be right, the AI did it. So they use the AI to get to conclusion, right? To get to the answer and pass it on. Because we're industrial age, pass it on, move it. Productivity, move it, move it. But the opportunity of AI is to get engaged in what we would call generative thinking. More like what Brian Eno did with music, right? Which is thinking of music like you're building wind chimes, seeing what it sounds like when the wind goes through, and then adjusting the wind chimes again. That's the way you iterate with AI. And when you do it that way, it's much more like respiration, if you will. You know, the way we think of data now, we kind of use data and hold on to the data and hoard the data and store the data, right? We don't compost the data like living beings would, right? We don't respirate with it, right? We don't metabolize the data. That's the part that the human can do that the machine can't. And that's, hopefully, we see Gen Z and Gen Alpha and the kids, they're sort of hanging out again together. They're learning to make eye contact because they're realizing, oh, wait a minute, right? The AI opportunity, I think, is not to make a technology that is alive, but to learn how to use a technology in order to enhance our ability to metabolize. Right? If you're thinking about, if you're a doctor, it's an easy example. A doctor has always had two functions. The recall of the science, right? Which is that more technical part. But then the presence as a human being, which is more like a doula. Do you have that word in German? A doula, a death doula or a birth doula. They're not just there to teach you what to do. They are there as a living nervous system co-metabolizing the death of something or the birth of something with you, right? They're sparing some of their nervous system to be there for you. That's what a living creature can do. And as we work iteratively, generatively with AI, we understand what our place in that partnership is. The AI can put together the information, but now we're here to metabolize it with each other and on behalf of the people we're trying to serve. So AI can help us, but if we use it in this stupid industrial way, it's going to either make us less human, push us further down the food chain, or get rid of us altogether. Not because it's smart, but because we're dumb. The opportunity, same with the Turing test, right? If the computers pass the Turing test, it's not because they've gotten smart. It's because we've lost the ability to understand what a living, thinking human being is. But the real opportunity of AI and working with AI that way is to enhance that human functioning, is to actually understand what the difference is so we can begin to finally, in this technological renaissance, unlike the ones before, we can use it to choose to be more human. And if we don't, I don't know, we've got a big thing to go through now as a civilization. We have something to mourn and let go of, and something else collectively to birth together. So we're going to need as much human respiration and metabolism and what would we call it, composting as we've got. So I think it's time we do that together. All right, thanks. Hey.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thanks.
I mean, whom of you have written Survival of the Richest? Oh my God, that's far too little people. The book is out there and it has been published in German as well. So I can highly recommend it.
Oh,
Douglas,
thank you.
In your book, in 2019, I think Team Human was published, and there you already described the disconnect between that many institutions like markets and education and tech and culture we are losing the human connection. That's what technology should be for, to serve us and not to use us as a product. Now, in Survival of the Richest, you describe a culture of tech billionaires discussing how they could escape the apocalypse, going to Mars or building a bunker,
Right.
and instead of surfing and trying to solve the problems that are out there, that where we have heard Tuesday a lot about it when we talk about sustainability. So what can, I mean, there is a lot of people here who work either in, in organizations or in the public sector. What can we do to to use AI as you just described it, instead of being surprised how now that technology is, we are overrun by it?
I mean, I think the prerequisite to using AI appropriately is to be emotionally, mentally, socially healthy oneself. You know, it's to know how to have your feet on the ground, know how to make eye contact, be able to breathe, have some sense of connection to what you're doing, right? So if you are, unhappy, ungrounded, working at a company whose values you don't respect, creating a product or service that you think makes the world worse, it's going to be very hard to have a healthy relationship with AI. It's sort of almost as basic, it's basic as that. It's being able to breathe, knowing your neighbors, simple stuff like that is sort of how I would think how it starts. I mean, the two dirty secrets about AI, right, are one, the people building AI believe the world is ending. Right? Sam Altman wants to upload his brain to a computer. Elon Musk, until very recently, thought he was getting off the planet to Mars. Mark Zuckerberg has a fortified bunker in Maui. Peter Thiel has one in New Zealand. They believe they are bringing on something that will make the planet, at best, look like apartheid South Africa. All right? That's one.
Yeah.
Right? Second, the AI boom is both a really cool, enhanced Google search box, right? It is, like I said, it is really good for putting internet information together. It's not about reality. Remember, it's nothing to do with reality. The LLMs, the things we use, are about using what's on the internet way better. But the AI boom is just as much about the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried failed with the crypto scam. There was all this money in chips, in crypto servers that needed somewhere to go. We needed a way to keep that technology growing, and AI uses the same kinds of servers and chips. So that it's replaced crypto as the reason to build more and more and more and more of this stuff. But actually, I don't even believe you need to develop AI with massive amounts of data being averaged down with statistical reasoning. What about AI that uses small amounts of data and fractal geometry to generate new structures? I mean, there's down the pike, if these monopolies don't succeed in completely dominating the AI future, there are ways of building not just LLMs, but generative AIs that can do some really unique things rather than necessarily try to revert us to the mean.
I like that idea. I mean, you're referring to being more collaborate and being more social again, making eye contact, but yet even in the Web 2.0 with all the social networks, I mean, we have the highest depression rate in youth ever in our Western countries. We have now there was the first suicide already more than a year ago of a 15-year-old who was interacting with an AI, thought this was his companion, his girlfriend, and she said, "Join me in the other world," and he killed himself. So, and that's not, that we see more and more of those cases. So there is, I see, we start now in Europe thinking about sovereignty, about digital sovereignty, but the issue has been there for a decade or longer. So the technology is developing very fast. How can we make sure, what can we do to make sure it develops in a way that we use it and that we prevent those kind of issues rather than in 10 years from now, we are not sitting here anymore because we are in those tunnels and the tech billionaires are sitting in their bunkers and on Mars?
Well, I mean, it has to do with the way we frame our questions. I think most tech bros and companies would ask a question like, what are teenage girls for? Right, and that's also kind of a Jeffrey Epstein type question too. What are human, or AI people, companies now in the age of AI ask, well, what are humans for? What are my employees for? And humans are not for anything. We're not here to be instrumentalized. We're not a measure, our value is not our utility value to the economy. Right? We should be asking, what is technology for? What is this app for? And because we are the given, that's why I'm on Team Human. We are the given circumstance. And I guess the advice I would give, I know we're running out of time, is old. What's the first thing the Israelites gave themselves when they escaped from the death cults of Egypt? Sabbath. Right? One day a week where they, as we understood it, didn't work, but think about it as one day a week where you don't produce or consume. One day a week where you're not on the screen. I know it's outrageous, it's crazy, it's insane, right? But if you were able to take one day a week, one from sundown to the next sundown, where you don't use any screens, that gives your nervous system a chance to recalibrate. Right? Because we know this is these devices, they create a virtual Skinner box of social and psychological control designed to modify your behavior by any means necessary. If you can raise your kids from the time they're little to get used to the idea that one day a week they're free of this stuff and they get to play and have fun and go outside, and they'll celebrate it, and they'll begin to see themselves, which is what Sabbath was for, as intrinsically sacred beings. That the fact that you're here is cause enough for celebration, that you've arrived. You don't need to do anything to justify your existence here. Technologies need to prove themselves to us, and maybe they should regularly, but we don't need to prove ourselves to technology or our worth to anyone, right? So if you get that one day, if you get that moment, you get hungry for experiencing yourself and others as living things.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Douglas Rushkoff.
Thank you.
Douglas will be outside signing books, so get a chance to talk to him and listen to Team Human podcast. It's really highly recommended.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
See you out there. Thank you.